Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Blue Box Banter, a Doctor Who recap podcast done by two ex-Doctor Who addicts now revisiting their nostalgic obsession. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy our unhinged and easily distracted recap of this episode of Doctor Who.
Okay, so The Empty Child, part 1 of a two-parter, an absolute banger of a two-parter.
Because the second one is The Doctor Dances, isn't
Yes.
it? Yes.
Written by Stephen Moffat himself.
Wow. It's like he can actually do stuff right when he's given restrictions.
Oh my god. So, the episode opens with them chasing after this random, like, in the TARDIS, chasing after this random thing, which is
tube.
this tube.
And you're like, what?
It's like, whoa, what is happening?
It starts off with a bang.
Yeah.
You're just like,
It's
are
like
into it.
This whole episode is like a non-stop roller coaster.
Oh my gosh.
It's so good, though.
It's genuinely crazy to me how they were able to make such a good episode that also is one of the most traumatizing things you can see as a child.
It has some of the best pacing and like clever writing of the first season.
Yeah.
And it's also and it has also some of the worst CGI, but it looks it's terrifying.
That's
still.
the thing is like that I find CGI is great in that way sometimes when it is old, that you're like, this is so terrible that it's terrifying.
Yeah. Well, because the CGI is only used to this is near the end, but like the CGI is only used to bridge the gap between like the practical effects of the gas mask and it growing onto their face. And it's scary.
Awful.
So
let's not get into that just yet.
The episode opens with them chasing after this tube thing, and it's like, I can't remember what the doctor says specifically.
He says it's like getting like a distress signal from it, basically.
Oh yeah, there's a distress signal coming from it, or like, there's some kind of something weird about it, because even Rose is like, why are we chasing this random tube?
Yeah, and then he says something about locking onto its like signature.
He definitely says a bunch of scientific mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, and you're like, I see.
Those are words.
So.
And then it just crashes into 1941. I feel like, is 1941 the right?
I don't feel it.
No,
I think it's later than that.
1941, yeah.
Is it 41?
During the London Blitz.
Oh, it was 41. I thought it was later for some reason.
And it's funny because for some reason, the Doctor is either really good at telling immediately what time period it is, or he has no idea. And it's always the times when he has no idea that is like the dangerous.
Yeah.
Because Rose, for visualization's sake, Rose is wearing a Union Jack t-shirt.
Yeah. She's looking aggressively early 2000s, but she's looking good.
Specifically a Union Jack t-shirt, and that is important.
Yes.
And they split up.
Which you're like, in what world are they like?
Why are they? Don't split. You don't even know what year it is.
No.
You know that you're on Earth, but you don't know what year it is. But it does make for a very funny bit.
One of my favorite jokes from this season is when the Doctor goes to like that club and is like, "Hi, silly question. Has anything fallen from the sky recently?" And everyone just starts like cracking up at him, and only then after that happens, the air raid sirens go off, and he sees the posters, and he's like, "It's World War II!
Oh no!" And he's like,
Oopsie.
"Maybe I shouldn't have left Rose alone."
Yeah, she just has gone off. She's
the
just
amount of times that the Doctor has had a "oh crap" moment, I need to find Rose immediately.
Yeah,
is so funny.
I feel like one of them needs to put the other on a leash.
Or they need to have their cell phones like with the GPS app.
Yeah.
So they can be like,
Find My
friend.
Friends need to be turned on.
Oh my god.
They need to have one of those like have you seen like the belt where if someone runs out too far they get pulled back in? They need to both be wearing those.
Yeah.
And then they're set. They gotta stop doing that. This is the episode where we get introduced
to Jack Harkness. How does this happen again?
Okay,
because
so basically
Rose, I think the first instance of like the empty child is Rose is just kind of walking around and the phone keeps going off.
Yeah. No, it's not the phone. She sees the kid.
She sees the
kid
kid
going, "Mommy."
Doesn't a phone go off, or is that
that's for the Doctor?
Okay, that I remembered Yeah, the kid is just standing on top of a roof.
And she's like, oh, do you need help? And she like tries to climb up without realizing that the rope that she's climbing is attached to like a dirigible, basically. And then she starts flying up into the air and is hanging onto this zeppelin in the middle of a blitz in London.
Wearing a Union Jag.
Wearing a Union Jag. And then one of my...
Okay, I know they've already mentioned that she is a gymnast, but like that she's done gymnastics. Her upper body strength, insane. I would have let go and died already.
And then we have one of the silliest, earliest moments where Jack zooms in on her ass and says...
but not... Because he's at some kind of party with whatever, and he's obviously like... He's like, they don't know that he's from the future, but he's kind of like trying to infiltrate. He's got binoculars.
So he zooms in on her butt and goes, nice bottom or something.
What he says is, excellent bottom. And that specific phrase, like, it is a... They had this American man say excellent bottom.
And then my personal favorite part of this scene is that the soldier that he's with thinks he's talking about him, and the conversation they have immediately before he goes to get Rose implies these two have had sex before.
Of course he has. Of course they have.
And you're just like, of course.
Our first introduction to Jack Harkness is that he's a massive slut.
He is the sluttiest slut in the entire galaxy.
Good for him.
And you're just like, I love space pansexuals. They're my favorite. And that happens a couple times in this episode where he's able to, or maybe in this two-parter in general, where progression is made because Jack is so horny that he can get into anywhere.
Yeah.
I think that's ridiculous.
He's their own personal psychic paper.
Yeah, but it's just horny.
Yeah.
It's a horny paper. It's ridiculous, but one of my... I will say this is kind of a clever bit of writing. So Jack gets her in a tractor beam, which I don't know why I find that so silly, but he says something about turn off your cell phone, and she makes the joke of, oh, they always say that on airplanes, but I never believe it. But that was how he was able to determine that she's not from this time period, because obviously the 40s you wouldn't have a cell phone.
Yeah.
So he's able to like confidently say she is a time traveler of some kind because she said, she's like, I turned off my cell phone. I don't know why. I thought that was such a genius little detail to put in because it's so inconspicuous because you're like, if you've been on an airplane, you've heard to make sure to turn off your cell phones.
I like the bit where he says, don't like hold on or something, and she's like, hold on to what?
Yeah. You're like, yeah, she's right. Like, what do you expect her to do here? She's kind of, hanging.
Wait, isn't this the episode where Rose makes a comment about spaceships? Or am I thinking of Donna? Because I think when she gets onto... Oh yeah, she mentions that he needs to be more Spock. Doesn't he?
She says you need to be more Spock because she says you should scan for life.
Yeah.
And he's like, or you should scan for like this energy reading, whatever. Scan for something. And
like,
the doctor's like, that's not how that works. So later Jack says, I'll scan for whatever. And she's like, finally, some professionalism.
What happens is when she gets onto, after the tractor beam brings her on, she's like, well, this is a little bit more Spock. Like, she makes an offhanded comment about how
there's a few Star Trek jokes in this one.
The fact that he looks like he's from the future and not just a guy. Spock.
Yeah. She, like, I kind of think that's hilarious that the whole joke of Captain Jack's character in this moment is just that he is the stereotypical, like, time-traveling spaceman character. Like, he's handsome, and he's got this uniform, and he's got the spaceship, and he's got all these quips, and says all of the sci-fi stuff. Because I feel like Doctor Who probably, like, the series, I mean, has probably gotten a lot of that throughout its run because it's the, like, kind of silly one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, Star Trek is silly, but they
take it so seriously.
Like, they take their sci-fi seriously.
Yeah.
Whereas Doctor Who is kind of like, they're cats, and they're nuns.
Yeah. There's a little bit extra level of, like, this is an actual world in Star Trek.
It's silly.
Yeah, it's silly goofy. I love Star Trek. But yeah, so I kind of like that and I think I don't remember if we talked about this in an episode yet, or if this was just a conversation that we had in general, talking about the way that British people depict Americans is hilarious.
That was a conversation I think we had privately.
Yes.
Outside of the podcast, where we were like, Jack Harkness is the perfect example of British people writing Americans.
Yeah.
Because he's the, like strong-jawed.
No, we did, because
voice.
this led to our rant about Canadians.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, well, he's very much... especially his lines are very funny because they're written by a British person, but acted out by an American, and you can tell because the inflection is... It's
weird.
It's him trying to sound natural, but the words he's saying, like, no one says excellent bottom.
I think the thing that makes me laugh is, even though...
Also, I just think that John Barrowman is a good actor.
That's one of the funny things, is the way that John Barrowman plays Jack. He sounds like how British people sound when they try to do American accents. Mm-hmm. Like, it's maybe because I think he might be trying to do, like, an Atlantic Midwest
trying,
accent.
but he's not.
It's either that, here's my two things. It's either A, he's trying to sound old-timey like they did in the movies back then, or he's trying to sound less gay.
Yeah.
Like, he might be trying to tone back his,
because I was going to say his voice is really deep. In the first, and it's, because later on when he comes back, he doesn't sound he sounds better.
They let him sound like a queer when he's not in the 40s, I guess.
But yeah, in this one, his voice is, like, really deep, and his, like, he puts a lot of, slow emphasis on words.
Yeah.
Which is not how Americans talk.
So I wonder if he was trying to straighten his voice up a bit.
Probably. He does have a really, I don't want to say feminine, but, like...
He's got the fabulous voice.
He's got the inflection.
Yeah.
Yeah, this episode, he's not a very good actor in it, though.
I don't know his filmography, but I don't feel like he was very far into whatever he was doing at this point.
At the very least, not far into British projects.
Yes, and I think that might be it. Like, I will give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here, just because the way that British television, or just British writing in general, is very different than how we write it in North America. Like, one of the things that they talk about, I've read, because I've studied film in school and stuff like that, is... I know. In a lot of places, like, Americans really, really like realism. Like, if it doesn't...
Yes, if they cannot take silliness.
Which is why a lot of American sci-fi is as, like, in-depth and insane as it is because if your world isn't 1,000% fleshed out...
That's
and
why it's so boring.
And it's so, like, heady and stuff like that. Whereas a lot of British stuff is silly. Like, there's no way in hell that America could have produced Mr. Bean. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, there's the different levels of comedy, there's the different style of writing, there's just the fact that there's so many words that British people use that you would never hear. Like, come on, we all knew that friend in grade school or high school who went through their Harry Potter phase and suddenly picked up saying shit like bloody hell and stuff like that.
The problem is that I think my friend did have a British relative, so it was very funny to hear that kind of stuff because it was more natural, but there were other people that I knew that did pick up on that stuff.
Yeah, and you're just like, yeah, you did not learn this from natural sources. You watched the Harry Potter movies and Rupert Grint said it one too many times and now this is your personality. Yeah. No, it's very much that. It's the, North America kid watched too much BBC and now it's like just in their like dictionary kind of thing. Because, like I said, he sounds like when British people try to have an American accent. If you watch this originally, I don't think you would be able to catch that he actually, like, John Barrowman is American.
Yeah.
I think you would just assume it's a British person because it's the same problem that we had earlier with the guys in the Dalek episode where we're like, why do they sound so unnatural?
Yes.
I think this is why. It's
like when you listen to someone with a really heavy accent speaking English, but your brain can't process. Like if you listen to a French person talk in English, it still sounds like French to you. That's what it sounds like. It still sounds like British, like English. British accent.
Yeah. It's strange because you don't really think of, like, because it's still English.
Yeah.
But because of how different, like, slang and pronunciation
not even that, just, like, the way that words are pronounced.
Yeah. And, like, the structure of things.
Yeah.
Because, the directors are British, so they probably are being directed to do it a certain way that's different.
Have you seen, there was a TikTok a while ago, this is totally off topic, but there's a TikTok a while ago of, I'm pretty sure she was from England. she came over to Canada and she realized that she started speaking differently because when she would video chat with her family in England, they would make fun of the way she said things because the way the Canadian accent is that when you end words or sentences, you end it with a question, or you end it by going.
The inflection goes up or down depending on where you are in the sentence, and when it goes down is when it's your turn to talk.
Yeah, so she was saying things like that, where she would inflect. I want to say, I can't remember. I'm trying to think of the way I'm talking right now.
Yeah,
it's going down.
Yes.
when I finish the sentence. So I think she was doing that where she would finish her sentence by inflecting down, and her friends and family were like, "Why are you talking so weird?" Because like. You don't notice that kind of... Like, you can write dialogue for an American person. Do you hear the way I just said that?
The way... I was just going to say that. We've talked about this before, about how, like, hyper-aware of my own accents I've become, especially making this podcast. Because
the way I just went even more southern.
Because the way that we say certain words... Like, I make myself crazy listening to any OU word. Out, house, mouth. Mouth. Why is it so round sounding?
And words that end in OR.
OR.
Like, the way I just said for, I said fur. Like, I will say for, like, if I'm talking and I'm, like, saying the word for, but when I'm talking in a sentence, I slur it. I say fur.
It was like we were, of course, bringing up Letterkenny again.
Yeah.
Furda. Like, my mom was like, what's Furda? I'm like, it's for the.
Yeah.
It's for the boys.
She's
like... What?
But that's what my point about, like, you can write dialogue, you can try to write accurate dialogue for American characters, and maybe you'll get some words wrong, but it still will sound unnatural because it's not the same, especially if your directors and voice coaches are all British. Also British.
Yeah, because the director's gonna, like, if like, I don't know the full context of, like, the behind-the-scenes stuff necessarily, but if, like, he delivered a line how you would as an American, and they were like, no, it needs to be our version of American.
Yeah,
say it this way.
I can understand making him the British, like, I want to say, an American character that is palatable to British people.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes the way Americans talk in, like, Hollywood movies is really annoying.
Yeah.
So I can understand them not wanting that kind of accent.
Well, it was like when we watched that clip from Supernatural, and I was making fun of the way that Jared Padalecki's acting voice is. Because there's a certain inflection when you can tell that someone, especially television actors, aren't great yet.
Yeah.
I don't know if he gets better in later seasons.
Yeah, well, that was season 2.
Yeah.
Season 2. And his accent was like, Dean, we have to... And he was, like, completely monotone, flat.
Well, because it's the... Come on, we gotta find the thing, because if we don't, then this thing is gonna happen. Like, it's that very put-upon voice that sounds very disingenuous, and you're just like...
No one talks like that.
That's an actor voice. That is, I'm acting now.
Like, Americans don't sound like that.
No. That's how they say, like, you know you're a good actor when it doesn't seem like you're acting.
Yeah.
And there's a certain inflection that... Because it's the difference between stage and screen. On stage, that's welcome, because you want your actors to be acting on stage. That's one of the reasons why they talk about it's so hard to switch between the two.
Yeah.
Because there's a certain level of, like, buying into the unreality of what you're in when you're watching a stage thing.
In a movie, it completely takes you out.
Because there's that expectation of realism when you're watching television or movies.
I'm trying to think of actors and actresses that are not American but have done really good American actors, or like the opposite. I can't remember who the American actor that I didn't know wasn't British because they had such a great act. But like Margot Robbie, her American accent is incredible. I didn't know she was Australian.
Yeah, she's really good at hiding it.
Millie Bobby Brown, her American accent, she's British.
I always forget that.
Yeah, because her accent is incredible, and she gets the way I've seen some clips of her going from like interviews and stuff where she'll go from her normal accent, and it's almost like a transition into the flawless transition into the American accent, and I don't know how she does it because she goes from the British inflection and like the way that she says words to the the natural American way, and it's like, how are you able to do that so flawlessly?
I think someone who's a really good example of the difference between British and American acting is David Tennant. Because the way he acts in British IPs versus American ones, I find to be completely different. because, like, he really plays up the,
Wait.
like...
Other than Broadchurch, when has he done an American show?
He's, like, he does stuff that's not affiliated with, like, the BBC and stuff like that.
Yeah, but, like, American?
Not American.
Oh.
I mean, like, not specifically for a British audience. We'll say global instead, not necessarily that. But, the way that he acts, you can tell the fact that this man is just...
freed from the BBC.
Well, just the fact that he, like, definitely, like, emerged from a, like, stage somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you can tell he is a capital A theater actor. But, the way that he varies his intensity depending on, like, the joke in frickin' Staged where Michael Sheen calls him cartoonish.
Yeah.
That's, I think, a perfect example of it, because the moments where he's acting with Georgia, it feels very natural. You're like, I literally feel like I just stuck a camera in someone's living room. But then the moments where he's interacting with Michael and he's supposed to be, like, a silly, goofy guy, you're like, he's acting now. Yeah. Like, and the way that he...
I would
even
I would love to see him on stage, like, just to see his stage acting.
Oh my God.
I still haven't, like, his Hamlet. Is that the one that he did the movie version of?
Yeah.
That is still, like, movie acting.
But
I think
you've seen Much Ado About Nothing.
Yeah, I guess. But I meant more like dramatic stage acting.
Yeah.
Because that one is a bit cartoonish. We talked for 10 minutes about accents. This episode is about a dead child.
We talked for like 10-15 minutes about accents and acting.
I think, in my opinion, it was a very interesting depth into...
I hope so, but...
John Barrowman. Jack Harkness's...
We really gotta get back into it now. Anyway.
We haven't even gone 5 minutes into the actual episode.
We haven't.
Okay, Rose is on Jack's ship.
Yes.
And then this is when we go back to the doctor, and that's when the phone keeps ringing.
Yes, and he's like, this shouldn't be able to happen. It's not connected to anything.
Yeah, oh yeah, because it's the TARDIS phone.
Yeah.
He's like, hello?
Yeah.
How do you have this number? This isn't a real phone.
And then...
The scariest thing ever.
Yeah, and so then
getting a phone call.
Truly. The millennial nightmare. Then the lady shows up and is like, don't answer the phone. And then the doctor...
He's like immediately intrigued.
Yeah, and my favorite thing is he's like, time to follow this young woman around. And you're like, bestie, that's not appropriate.
You look like a middle-aged man.
Yes, you are being illegal right now. So he goes after her, and I do love this part where...
This is one of my favorite... Like, this is one of my favorite ways that they've written, like, one-off characters.
Yes.
Because they make... Even though she's only in 2 episodes, they make Nancy. Her name's Nancy.
I love Nancy.
Yeah, they did such a good... I don't know if it's just because she's got older sister energy / mother energy.
Yeah.
Where I'm like...
You relate.
Yeah.
I think it's so fascinating because... so I love the scene where the air raid sirens go off, the family of
the very like visibly well off family. Yeah. Like even in the war they're still
well fed.
Well, not even that, their clothing,
their house, everything. House. They go into their bunker, and Nancy comes in, and I love this. This is such a sweet thing where she literally like sets the table like it's a family dinner and calls all of these like starving kids in off the street, and she makes them say grace. She makes them be like polite.
It's nice because she still wants them to have a normal routine.
Yes, it's like that they say that was the thing during COVID, right? Was stressing a routine and stressing some semblance of normalcy, because if you don't, you lose your mind, as we all know.
I think this is also like one of the few times where like a motherly character it feels natural and not just like a little bit
misogynistic.
Like you can tell that she does care about these children. Like there is a motherly thing, but it's not her only character. Like she's trying to protect children. Yeah. But also like I don't know, especially when the doctor comes in and makes a comment. I need to find...
Thanks, Mom!
Oh my god, that's so funny.
Yeah, and they all turn. How did they not see this giant-ass man come in?
They're all focused on...
meat.
Saying grace.
Yeah.
What was the joke joke about communism that he makes?
Yeah, he says something about how she's like redistributing the wealth.
Because he asks like what they're doing.
Yeah.
And like, yes, okay. So he's asking her like what's she doing, and she's like, you know, I'm just taking care of these kids, and she thinks that he's like judging her because like they're homeless and starving.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, and this is the quote is, "It's brilliant. I'm not sure if it's Marxism in action or a West End musical."
Yeah.
Which is one of my favorite quotes ever.
Yeah. That's my life. I'm not sure if this is Marxism or a West End musical.
Literally.
But it's very sweet, and I do love the fact that the doctor does not give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
He's just like, yeah, this is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because the doctor is an anarchist.
Yeah.
And there's really shouldn't be any question about that.
He's kind of a socialist icon.
I love him dearly. But no, because he's like, fuck, like these kids are starving, feed these kids. That's how it should be.
The family can obviously afford a full turkey in the middle of a war.
But their nice dinner gets interrupted because Mommy.
Oh, see, I don't know what's creepier, the like mommy or the slow mom. Like,
I think that one.
Oh, it's
mommy?
So creepy. And the doctor. This is the thing that frustrates me. Not frustrates me, but like stresses me out on rewatches.
Yeah.
Is that you know the bad thing is happening.
Yeah.
But the doctor doesn't know, so he fully like wants to help this kid, and Nancy's like, no.
Yeah. And he's like, it's a kid, let him in. And she's like, fucking don't do it.
No.
And the doctor's like, why not? Like, you clearly know something. And she's
like, you clearly want to take care of these children.
Yeah.
Why not this one? And she's like,
and so she makes all the kids evacuate and stuff like that. And the doctor is just like, interesting, there's something going on here.
I must investigate.
And then, this
uncanny ability to get himself in trouble is really something.
He had his big nose where it doesn't belong. One of my favorite jokes in this whole series, I don't remember if it's in this episode or the second part, but he follows her again, criminal.
Yeah.
And he says something about, my ears have special powers or something. No, my nose has special powers. And then she goes, do your ears have special powers too? Like, just roasting this man. And I'm like, and he's like, what's that supposed to mean? And she's like, nothing.
I don't remember how Rose and Jack, what did they do? Like, they dance.
Yes, they dance on top of the spaceship in front of the Big Ben, yeah. So what ends up happening is Nancy tells the doctor to go to the hospital, which I would like to point out is the same doctor from Aliens of London. It's the same hospital that the piggy boy goes into later.
Oh, yeah.
Continuity. And so she goes, and
Man,
Gaius is there. BBC has 12 actors.
I want to shout out the actor's name because
he's an icon. He's queer. Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
Isn't that awesome?
Richard Wilson, shout out to him.
Yeah, Richard Wilson.
He's Scottish.
He's Scottish.
I didn't know that.
Hell yeah. He's in, if you've ever seen the clip where David Tennant gets honored at, like, this, like, big award show, and they made this, like, 15-minute video about how amazing he is, and they got, like, him, Catherine Tate, Olivia Colman, like, all these people that he's worked with, to be like, David Tennant is the nicest human being alive, meanwhile him and Georgia are sitting there, and he's, like, blubbering the entire time. It's so cute. But he's Richard Wilson's in one of the clips. And they got his dad to come in and do it. It's so cute. But yeah, Gaius is there. Because that's what we know him as from Merlin.
And this episode came out, oh my god, almost 20 years ago. 2005?
It'd be 2005 or 2006.
18 years ago. And he still looks exactly the same as he does now.
Identical.
He looks old.
I love when old people stop aging.
It's like, it looks exactly the same. But, this is when the creepy stuff starts happening.
Because the doctor comes in, and there's all of these people on these beds.
They all have gas masks.
They all have gas masks, and the doctor's like, are they dead? And he's like, no, they're not dead. They're just, like, in stasis. And he's, like, talking about it, and he's so freaky, because everyone just sits up at one point.
It's because the kid, I think this is when Rose
they get reunited shortly, yes.
But isn't it because the kid is trying to get into somewhere else, and they're all kind of connected through the hive mind?
Yes, they're connected through the hive mind, because the kid was held in a wing at that place, and he infected everybody.
No, but like simultaneously, while the doctor's at this hospital and all the patients wake up, I think the kid is also somewhere else.
Yes.
And I think that's where Rose sees him again, or something. I can't remember how it happens. I just
No,
know that
Jack. They get there because Jack's trying to bamboozle Rose and the doctor with
yeah.
the thing, and so he locks on for alien patterns, and that's how he finds the doctor, and they meet him at the hospital. This is I don't know if this is in the first or second episode, or first or second part. But another one of my favorite lines from this episode is when they have their weird sonic dick measuring contest, and the Jack has like the sonic eradicator or whatever the hell it's called. I don't remember what the name of it is, but he's got the gun. And then the doctor's like, I have a sonic device too. And Jack is like, cool, what is it? And he's like, it's a sonic device. And he's like, what is it? He's like, it's a sonic screwdriver. And he's like, a sonic screwdriver what? If we need to put up some shelves? And then there's a comment about how Jack says something about getting something from a factory from this planet. Or the doctor says he like something about this planet factory. I don't remember what the hell it was. And Jack's like, you've been there? And the doctor's like, yeah, once. And Jack's like, the factories blew up. And he's like, yeah, once. Like, the doctor is just blowing shit up wherever he goes, apparently.
So, the doctor is Dr. Constantine.
Oh my god.
And this is when he explains that the kid is Jamie, Nancy's brother. And that every, like, you can tell who's about to be infected because they have, like, the cross on their hand.
Yeah.
And that's when it, like, pans out and you see him, like, looking at his own hand.
And he starts, like, gasping for air.
Oh my god, a grown man, like an old man going, Mommy!
Yeah.
While he's, like, turning into one of those things.
Well, because...
Oh, it's so creepy.
Like, the way that he does it is his face gets, like, really tight because he's, like, fighting against it. He's like, are you my mommy? And then it starts coming out of his mouth and you're like, ah!
And that's what, even though it's, like, dated CGI, it's still
awful,
creepy.
Because his eyes get all big and the thing comes out of his mouth and then
God.
it takes over his whole face and you're like, ah, I don't want it. Get it out. Oh my god, this was like one of the scariest episodes when I was younger. And it still holds up
creepy.
so well. Like, there's something about it because one of the things that I'm gonna keep calling him Gaius says is it's not a disease, it's like contagious injuries, which is such a wild thing because like the whole crux of the thing.
Because they're not sick and they're not dead, but there's like, I can't remember,
They have all the injuries that he has. So
which is why he has the
marks on his hand and stuff. Basically what happened was, I think we can explain it because I don't think you can...
It doesn't, we don't find out until the next episode.
Oh yeah.
What happened, so I'm just like reading the Wikipedia to make sure that we're not about to spoil what the next episode is.
Yeah.
This is the end of the episode.
It ends, I forgot it's a cliffhanger.
It ends with all of the patients sitting up just as Jack and Rose show up. And then Jack explains that he crashed the cylinder on purpose to try and get a buyer.
It's an ambulance. That's what he says.
It's a Chula medical transport that I think he probably thought was empty, but obviously it wasn't because, as we'll find on next episode, there was something in it.
Yeah. That's causing everything.
Oh yes, this is the part that I was confusing. So they're all sitting up and saying like, "Are you my mommy?"
Yeah. And
trying to attack them. Meanwhile, at home, Nancy is being cornered by Jamie. Yes. And that's what triggers the patients. That's what I was trying to think because they're all connected.
Yeah. Because he's following Nancy.
Because he's following Nancy because he knows that they're related.
Yeah.
And the episode like ends with her turning around and Jamie's like, "Are you my mommy?" or something like that. And then reaching out, and then the episode just ends.
Getting like cornered by all of these adults in gas masks.
This is not the first time that a two-parter has ended with them being like cornered.
Yeah.
Or like
it's
about to die.
The best way to do it because then you have to come back and see it. I think the scariest like gas mask people were the nurses. like their old-timey nurse uniform
Yes,
with all the
very,
injuries, and then the
Pyramid Head.
yeah, I was just gonna say it's Silent Hill.
Silent Hill, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, no, there's something about the uniforms that just really are like, no, thank you. Oh, we missed the part about the recording. So the Doctor, Rose, and Jack find the room that Jamie was being housed in, and they have a tape recorder of the Doctor talking to Jamie, where Jamie keeps asking, "Are you my mummy?" And there's all the paintings all over the walls.
Oh, yeah.
And then at one point, one of the best spooky moments in Doctor Who was one of them goes, "What's that sound?" "Oh, the tape recorder stopped. It's been done for a couple minutes, but you can still hear 'Are you my mummy?' because Jamie is there."
Oh my god, that's so creepy.
It's so scary.
I forgot about that.
I just remembered that.
They do that a couple times in episodes where you're thinking, the characters are thinking they're still watching a recording, but it's actually like
live.
happening.
Yeah.
That shit is so scary. It happens in a lot of like horror movies too, where I'm trying to think of like examples.
Technology, it can be used so effectively.
I remembered one. It's another Doctor Who episode that I'm thinking of.
What episode?
The Silence in the Library.
Oh,
where,
yeah!
like, trying to think. It's literally another Doctor Who episode where, this is like an episode next. No. 2, 3, 4 seasons ahead. Season 4, where, like, the person in a spacesuit is being consumed by a thing, but you don't know, but their last moments are recorded.
Yes.
And they'll be talking, and you won't know that they're dead until they start repeating.
Yes.
And that is the same thing. And it's terrifying. That's also a terrifying episode.
That's the thing.
It's like, because you're in, like, a false sense of security, where you're like, I'm just, like, this isn't real, like, this is in the past, I'm listening to a recording, and then you're like, oh crap, like, this is real now. Yeah. And there's nothing I can do about it.
I think one of the things that I do love about Doctor Who is I don't have a problem with repeating concepts as long as you do it in a unique way. And I think stuff
it's like a barely repeatable concept.
Yeah.
They do it so differently.
It's just like, it's the same idea, but if you're able to, like, be creative, you can completely change it. It's, man, talking about this episode makes me so mad. Why, Stephen Moffat?
I know.
Why? Why are you like this? Why couldn't you create some of the best ever, like, one-off Doctor Who adventures, and then you are the way that you are?
Can I say something off topic? But on topic. I'm looking at some pictures from this episode, some stills, and there's a picture of a pregnant woman with a gas mask, and I'm like,
does the fetus have the gas mask?
Does the fetus have a gas mask?
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
That's a great question.
Yeah, I think the best part is about, like, they picked every creepy trope they could.
Literally.
Little child saying something creepy.
Awful.
Gas masks, like a wartime. The entire episode takes place in one night.
Yeah.
With, like, there's air raids
bombing
happening,
and
there's
sirens.
everything about it is extremely jarring, and you don't really, and, like, even when you have a moment of, like, relief, there's something,
no safety,
there's something that's, you can't even, like, be like, oh, I'm safe in this hospital, or, like, I'm safe in this house, because you're either gonna get bombed, or there's a little child that's gonna knock at your door. It really is, like, one of the best Doctor Who horror stories, because there's fear from all sides.
Yeah.
There's actual, like, real life bombing, war, and then there's, like, the paranormal aspect.
I think it's one of the best, most effective episodes when it comes to interweaving the alien threat with the regular history threat. Because I think we talked about...
it feels so natural, too.
In the Unquiet Dead, we kind of talked about how disconnected the Charles Dickens of it all was from, like, the ghost.
Yeah.
Like, that story could have taken place in any time period in reality.
This one, like, specifically because of the gas masks,
the way that he died, the fact that the vessel was able to escape, like, questioning because
there's bombs dropping. Yeah. It's very, like, they did a very good job of interconnecting everything. Mm-hmm. And also, I think the episode is strongest because we don't see any of the aliens.
Yes, I agree.
And it's all, like, one prosthetic. They're all just wearing there's nothing scary about a gas mask.
No.
It's the connection, the cultural connection to it. the fact that you can't see the eyes, you can't see the facial expression at all. But it's just one prop.
Yeah.
And they use it so effectively. It's like the Blink, where
yes.
I don't think this episode obviously did not have like a low budget because it's very well produced.
Yeah.
But they didn't go overboard with like the character and the monster production or design.
I genuinely, I don't remember if we've talked about this before, but I am someone, maybe it's because I'm broke, but I am very much someone who believes that small budgets can be a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it
especially with horror.
Especially with horror, because Paranormal Activity is like one of the biggest franchises ever, and
you
it's
never see
literally
anything.
Zero budget. Like the first movie was like on a negative budget, but it's so effective because they had to be so creative.
And a lot of the spooks are like your own imagination. Like they're feeding into your own imagination. So the gas mask, the whole thing is you're feeding into this cultural fear of like. Especially 2005, it was a little bit closer to World War II. Mm-hmm. People like the parents of the kids watching it probably remembered it a little bit.
It was family,
like,
yeah.
It'll be interesting to watch this episode in like 20 years when that's like not. But like even now, like gas masks, war, those are terrifying concepts, and then you're adding in some kind of spooky, like DNA monster. That's kind of body snatching too.
Now imagine this episode with the Mickey Mouse gas mask.
Why is there a Mickey Mouse gas mask?
Because during the Second World War, kids were fucking terrified of the gas masks, so they tried.
They made it scarier.
So they tried to create children's gas masks to be like, yeah, don't be afraid. It's just your friend Mickey.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Look up children's gas masks from World War II. I'll save this picture so that we can post it to like our social media and stuff like that, so that like the good folks listening can know what the fuck this.
I just want to shout out the kid that played Jamie. He
Yes.
did a great job of being creepy.
He did so good. Kids who are really good at acting in horror movies always kind of scare me a little bit though, because you're like, what? How are you this good?
I mean, that's just how kids are.
Children are terrifying.
And they don't even do it on purpose.
Yeah, the children's gas masks from back in the day are insane because they tried to make them like less frightening, but in the process made them awful. Like for example, you have like this one.
Oh my god.
And that one. Like they tried to make them all colorful.
It looks like a Fisher Price.
Well, literally,
that's first gas mask.
That's literally what it was. Like, that's the funny thing is that was the intention was, oh, if we make it colorful, people, like, kids will be less frightened by it. But, surprise, gas masks are terrifying regardless.
So, we were talking earlier about how they were kind of making digs at Star Trek. Mm-hmm. And I'm just reading on the Wikipedia that in the DVD commentary for this episode, when, in the beginning, I think, Rose makes a dig about how the Doctor doesn't even have a name or whatever, and she's like, what should I call you, Doctor Who? And apparently originally the line was going to be, I'd rather have Doctor Who than Star Trek. They took that out.
What? Yeah, as they should.
Obviously. Apparently that was the first televised story to make a direct reference to Star Trek.
What?
I guess. That seems like a lost...
That show came out in the 60s.
They didn't want to touch... They were like, we're too good for Doctor Who, we're too good... I mean, Star Trek is just the American Doctor Who.
Well, there's no time travel. Well, there is time travel later, but not in the original series.
But it's still like a science fiction.
Yeah.
Like, the biggest science fiction.
I'm sorry. Doctor Who trying to talk shit about Star Trek is insane to me.
I know.
Where do you get off? What?
You think you're better than me? We're both bad.
At least Star Trek was gay as hell.
Star Trek really the forefathers of fan fiction.
They really were. Oh my god, you know what it is? The reason that I keep getting confused is because the Doctor Who audiobook I listened to recently makes jokes about Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
Where
of course they do.
The Donna and the Doctor land, and the Doctor panics because she makes a joke about Star Trek to him, and then they're in this military zone, and they ask them, like, what their names are, and the doctor calls himself, like, Dr. McCoy, and Captain Kirk is Donna. I think.
Of course.
I don't remember what exactly he says, but it's something along those lines. So that's why I think I keep getting confused that there's more Star Trek references.
I think it's funny to think that every time his companions bring up Star Trek,
he punishes them.
He's like, stop bringing up Star Trek.
I like to have the headcanon that the Doctor has gone forward in time and met the crew of the Enterprise and has beef with Kirk specifically. Because I feel like the Doctor and Captain Kirk would not get along because Kirk and the Doctor's egos are too big.
I just think it's funny though that Donna later too also makes a dig at the TARDIS being kind of like a mediocre spaceship.
Yeah.
It's in the Ood episode where she sees a spaceship and she's like, I don't know what she calls his, but she's like, that's a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's so funny that his friends, he gets to bring them on adventures and they still criticize his ride.
It's like being the one friend that knows how to drive, but you have like this shitty used car, so even though your friends don't know how to fucking drive, they still make digs at your shitty secondhand car. And you're just like, well, I'm sorry. Are you gonna drive us from now on in your fancy Mercedes? You don't even have a license. Like, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
It's like when people make fun of my Fiat for being too small. I'm just like, what do you want from me? That's so funny.
I'm gonna start saying that now.
Or you can take the bus then.
This is how the podcast ends.
Yeah, beef over a car.
Oh my god. No, it is funny though that his companions have such a, like, because they've been watching sci-fi for so long that they have such an idea of what space travel is supposed to be that when it's not like that, they're like kind of mad.
Yeah, and then when they do meet like Captain Jack and his ship,
they're like, now meanwhile his ship sucks.
Yeah, it's like tiny and like he has like a bunk bed. Yeah.
His bunk bed. He's the only bunk though.
Because I'm trying to remember, because he's got like one of the little like things. Oh, one of the other things that kind of is the foreshadowing is his ship has the nanotechnology, because she burns her hands on the rope, and then he's like, here, and then she like holds out her hand, and the nanotech comes in and repairs the skin. Is
there a bad wolf mentioned in this episode? As we're finishing up, I need to remember.
Probably.
I don't remember there being one.
I feel like there was, like, maybe was his ship named Bad Wolf or something? I don't remember.
I feel like that should be like... the bomb that drops in the next episode is called the...
Schelzer Wolf, which is Bad Wolf in German.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just found that article too. That's hilarious.
That's kind of funny. There isn't one in this episode though, I don't think.
No.
I feel like we didn't even really talk about this episode.
I feel it's like...
I mean, it's the opening part of the two-parter.
I also feel like, what else can you say about The Empty Child, right?
It's such a great episode.
Like,
there's literally nothing bad to talk about it,
and there's nothing we can say that hasn't been talked about 1,000 times by more qualified people. It's The Empty Child. It's like one of the Doctor Who episode. Like, I count kind of both of them as the one episode.
Yeah.
But it's like, when people talk about Doctor Who, odds are they're going to either make an "Are You My Mummy" joke, or they're going to reference the Weeping Angels.
David Tennant makes an improv joke later in the season where he holds up the gas mask and he's like, "Are you my mummy?"
And the guy's like, "Doctor, please, this is serious."
I love that he can joke about that.
Yeah, I'm glad he's working through the trauma. It's fine. But that's the thing, right? Is it's like, this is one of the most iconic pieces of like sci-fi television, like, period. Yeah. Like, that's how good it is. Like,
people that haven't watched Doctor Who in years will see a gas mask and be like, "Are you my mummy?"
I literally, like, 2 years, like, during the pandemic, I was working outside and I had to wear my gas mask because I was doing some airbrushing.
Yeah.
And I literally took a picture of myself and sent it to Chelsea with the caption, "Are you my mummy?" Because that's all, as a Doctor Who fan, you will ever be able to think of ever again. Like, we went to a war museum and, like, a bunch of us saw gas masks and we were like, oh.
You're like, oh, this is from a real life terrible war, but all I can think about is the Doctor Who.
Literally, like, that's how powerful it is. come on, how many of us, like, if we watched this when we were young, like, looked out at, like, statues in our garden and were like, you fucking stay where you are. Like, that's how powerful a lot of these episodes are.
I still see, like, whenever I see little angel statues, like, the small ones in people's front gardens, I'm like, my Doctor Who senses are tingling.
When I took the pictures of the 9th Doctor of the doll to post on social media, I specifically framed it so one of our garden statues is in the background.
I never noticed that.
Yeah, because I'm like, haha, Doctor Who reference. Like, that's how, like, brain rotty it is. Because you're just like, I mean, I don't know if it's in the ones that I posted necessarily, but I know I took pictures like that. Because it's just like, that's in your brain. That's the way that it is.
Had to take a break there for a while.
Yeah. Oh yeah, if you're listening, we had to take a break because we had Thanksgiving and both of us were like
had so much school and
school and work and family shit that we were just like, yeah, we do not have time.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I thought that this episode would be big enough for one part, 2 part. We could have done both episodes. But the second episode has so much to talk about.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to try to squish the second episode because that's where all of the good stuff is. Like, this is great.
This was a good episode to talk about absolutely, like,
everything else,
Jack Harkness.
Well,
British people.
American people. The concept of British people. I think, they definitely would have lost a lot if they tried to squeeze it into one episode.
It was going to be a small... I was just looking at the Wikipedia. It was originally supposed to be a smaller episode, and there wasn't really, like, a monster, and then they really, like... They must have went back to the drawing board and said, we have a concept that we can... it's so funny because Aliens of London, I think, could have been one episode.
Yes.
It was, like, so much of nothing... Like, it was a good concept, but there was too much that they spread out. This is an episode, this is an episode where I'm glad they did a 2-parter because the setup is just as... I mean, that's horror.
Literally.
You need, like, in most horror movies, you spend, like, 40 minutes of just build-up.
Yeah.
There's nothing even... Like, there's some scary bits of, like, foreshadowing, and, like, sometimes you don't even get a glimpse of the monster.
Yeah.
And it's only in the last, like, half hour of the movie that things start going crazy.
And I think the way that they did it in this episode with you show up in London, you realize you're in the middle of the Blitz, Rose meets Jack, the Doctor meets Nancy. There was a lot of setting stuff that happened. Doctor meets Nancy, finds out about the empty child and the threat that it poses, goes to, I'm going to call him Gaius again, goes to Gaius, gets the skinny on how it's affecting everybody, witnesses the horror in action,
and then the actual like horror stuff starts to happen.
Yeah,
and it's a cliffhanger.
I think it's brilliant. I think it's so well paced because then the next episode is all action. Yeah, it's so good. Like, especially if you're watching it if you're watching it back to back. Yeah, the pacing still holds up. I can't imagine having to wait a week.
Oh my god,
the torment I would have been in.
I'd be like, but what?
Help! No, I fucking love this
I do also like that they did a 2-parter because, like I said earlier, Nancy is such a great great character. Yeah. That, the payoff of them taking the time to establish her character, it does pay off. Yes. In the second. Oh, it wouldn't have paid off very well if they had just been like, Nancy, this is her brother, and then the big reveal in 40 minutes. Like, it would not have been as effective. Yeah, this was a great episode. Banger of an episode. Banger of a 2-parter. Mm-hmm. I think it's funny because a lot of the Doctor 2-parters are really good, except for some. But yeah, this one was really good. Oh yeah, so the next part is the next part of this episode, which is the Doctor dances,
which has one of my favorite clips ever of him.
Oh, the resonating concrete clip, or
what?
He's resonating concrete. We'll get into it. That's what I'll leave them on. Is
I bet the Doctor doing his little dance.
No, that's before. He can't dance with Rose because he's resonating concrete.
I don't remember this at all.
Okay, we'll get into it. I'll show you. After we're done, I'll show you the clip.
Yeah. All right, next time, resonating concrete.
Look forward to it.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Blue Box Banter. You can find us on Tumblr, Instagram, and YouTube under the username Blue Box Banter Podcast. New episodes release Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music. Thanks again for listening, and have a fantastic day.